I want you to explore the training world a little bit more because it seems to me that so many lifters are obsessed with the big three, aka squat, bench press, deadlift, or just classical lifts as a whole. They base their entire strength training off of these movements. And although, listen, I'm a huge fan of classical lifts, I don't think it's the only way to get strong. And I believe that once you are advanced and you've been training for many years, you're only going to regress if you keep doing the same shit over and over again. So that's why, folks, I want to preach to you high exercise selection because I think there's really a lot of benefits to it. And also it's going to explain why in my training videos, you see me doing so many different movements every single week. So let's break this down. First and foremost, you need to understand that general strength does not have an impact on the technique of classical lifts. Okay, so that said, if I'm doing a one-arm dumbbell push press, that's not going to negatively impact my standard barbell overhead press. It's not going to affect the technique in any way. I'm still going to be perfectly fine. Okay, so that said, you can pretty much get as strong as you want on general strength movements, and it's just only going to raise your work capacity. It's going to raise your muscle gains. It's going to raise your strength gains as a whole. And the best part is that most of these movements carry over to the main lift. So if I do a camber bar bench with double bands, right, that's going to carry over to my standard barbell bench press, even though I'm not doing the main lift. Now listen, the benefit of high exercise selection is that there's a lot of options here, and when you enter a new movement, you can get really fast strength gains off it. Imagine this. Imagine you have a program that only has 10 movements versus a program that has 300 movements. Which system do you think will lead to more plateaus? Obviously option A, because you can only get so strong in movements, right? In certain movements. But when you have high exercise selection, you could constantly rotate the movement and make gains year round. That's why in my strength training, you don't see me getting plateaus. I move on from goal to goal to goal. And that's how I do things. So if I plateau on a medals row, I'll go on to a one-arm T-bar row. If I plateau on that shit, I'll go to a regular T-bar row. If I plateau on that, I'll go to a fucking Pendlay row. And I'll constantly rotate through. And every time I go back to a different variation, the strength improves. Because I am still training hard, I'm still training volume, I'm still training intensity, aka concurrent, but I got stronger on general strength. And the general strength seems to have really good carryover. Like if I, example, right, let's say I take my medals row from 7 plates to 8 plates. Well, that by default is going to increase my one-arm T-bar row. And it's also going to increase my dumbbell row since it's all unilateral stuff. So you see what I'm saying? Like, let's say dumbbell row was the classical lift. Well, guess what? I just improved it without doing the fucking exercise. I improved it by focusing on something else that I was relatively new at, and now I'm just so much stronger. So that's the secret to my gains. I'm constantly rotating movements, man. And honestly, if you experiment with this, if you get out of this elitist mindset that so many guys have installed in your fucking brain, you're gonna make so many more gains for it. Like, don't just limit yourself. And another thing, like, it's fucking boring doing the same shit over and over again. Like, how many times you see a guy to go to the gym? He's like, okay, I'm gonna do some bench press now. All right, I hit a couple sets of that. You see I could touch the chest and I'm exploding back up, retracting the scapula. Like, it's always the same stuff, you know? But how many times you see a guy, he's going in the gym, he's like, okay, now I'm going to do some Zerker rack pulls. Oh, now I'm going to do some one-arm T-bar rows. Now I'm going to do some power shrugs behind the back. You see what I'm saying? It's fucking fun. It's really, really fun. And when you enjoy your training, you have more motivation. You can push yourself harder. So that's another benefit right there. There's psychology involved in this shit. Okay, so mindset is key. Like, personally, I couldn't stand doing the same shit over and over again. I would rather quit weights than do classical lifts over and over again. I would not enjoy that whatsoever. At the end of the day, you have to enjoy your training, and I fucking love training my way, which is high exercise selection. Another point is that high exercise selection will override the biological law of accommodation, hence why I promote concurrent periodization. Now, the biological law of accommodation is when an organism ceases to adapt to its environment. In this case, you no longer adapt to training stimuli. Now, there's many ways of overriding it. You can either change the parameters, which is the sets, the reps, the volume, or the intensity, or you could rotate the movement. Now, personally, I like to rotate movements because it's just the best way to fucking do it. Because I could keep my volume and intensity the same year round. Which means what? There's no stalls on work capacity. I could do fucking 5 sets of 10 year round. I could do 10 by 10 year round. And there's no stalls in nervous system work. You ever notice how if you take long periods of time off from one rep maxing, when you go back to it, it feels extra heavy? Or you ever notice if you take a break from volume work, when you go back to it, you feel fucking drained? Well, that's because you're just rotating the parameters. But when you change the exercise, you can keep the parameters the same. So you can continue to push yourself with maximum intensity, maximum volume year round, but now you got a different lift. So that's why it's so fucking important that you have higher exercise selection. It's going to eliminate all plateaus, make your strength go up year round. There's no roller coaster shit, right? There's no peaking process. There's none of that crap unless you really want to. It's constant fucking gains. And then the high exercise selection is like you constantly bring up your general strength. It does not negatively impact your technique. It's totally win-win if you ask me. And like I said, even if you're an advanced lifter, there are certain movements that are new to you that if you get strong at it, you'll be able to make very fast gains. And you'll be able to have new records, new goals to shoot for. Because let's say you're benching 350, right? Do you know how long it could take to reach a 405 bench? If you even fucking reach that shit? It could take you years. It could take you years and years and years. But you know what? Maybe if you decide to focus on some weighted divs, take your shit from 135 to 225. Now that bench that you had is automatically going to go up. But guess what? Now you also reach a dipping goal. Oh yeah, and then one final thing that I'd like to mention is that high exercise selection is going to keep you injury free because you're not going to have any muscular imbalances from doing the same minimal shit, right? It's going to prevent overuse because you are rotating movements, and it's going to build muscle differently. So if I do an overhead extension one week and then I do a skull crusher the other, well, I'm hitting my muscles a little bit differently. I'm hitting the long head on the overhead extensions, and the regular skulls is a bit more medial head unless I'm using shoulder flexion. So it's going to do all these things for you, whereas classical training, minimalist training, does not offer these benefits. It's just you're getting good at one fucking movement, and that's it. And it doesn't carry over to a lot of other shit. Whereas general strength, it does carry over. It makes you stronger. It makes you bigger. It just makes you more fit. It's so freaking worth it. So I would highly encourage you guys to give concurrent periodization a shot, to give high exercise selection a shot. Stop thinking, okay, how much can I improve my squat, bench, dead? If you're not a powerlifter, stop thinking like one. Start thinking more like a bodybuilder sense, but use strength training parameters. Okay, so think of it like this: how could I raise my barbell shrug? What exercises can I do that's gonna build my barbell shrug? What exercise can I do that's gonna build my neck extension? You know, think outside the box. Don't think big three, big three, big three. Who the fuck made it to big three? Who said that it's gotta be those specific lifts? It could be whatever the fuck you want. It could be a Zercher deadlift. It could be a fucking rack pull. Whatever you want it to be, that's all that matters. So that's it, man. Hope you enjoyed this video. Give me your feedback down below, and I will talk to you all next time.